Plastic. What do we do now? We consume and throw away so much plastic now. You probably are aware. Here's something that we wanted to update, however. The United States was exporting for decades now our plastic recyclables to China. China was actually paying money for the plastics because to them, they would pay not much for the recycling, but they would turn it around, make it into raw materials, and actually create a profit. Well, that has since changed since 2018. For years, America sold millions of tons of used yogurt cups, juice containers, shampoo bottles, and other plastic trash to China to be recycled. This information, by the way, is coming from March 13th of 2019, the NPR program called All Things Considered. The author was Christopher Joyce. They paid for the world's plastic and paper trash, but they made it far more money from it by processing and selling the raw materials. A little bit of the history. In 1995, Zhang Yin started a paper recycling company in China called Nine Dragons. She would become China's first female billionaire from this. China wanted scrap paper and plastic, so they started buying it up around the world. So that's 23 years ago. Martin Bork runs part of the Ecology Center in Berkeley, California. There were brokers going around the globe buying up all this scrap plastic. So when we would all put it into the recycling containers, it would be gathered up. Some of it was processed here in the United States, don't know how much, but a lot of it was sent to the west coast of the United States. Now, this is interesting how the process works. Many of the plastics that we would put into recycling, bags, cups, plastic wrap, and thin film that wraps around things, it gums up the sorting machines in the US and is almost no value to recyclers. As we know, basically it's bottles that are recyclable, but not this thin wrap. The thin wrap just makes a mess and it's very difficult to recycle. Okay, so these conveyor belts would gum up with this plastic. They didn't know what to do with it until China came along and said, we'll buy it up for you. By 2016, the US was exporting 700,000 tons per year of recycling materials to China, and it was 7 million tons per year from the entire world. 5 years ago, the Chinese government started to worrying about all this trash. Here's what started to happen. The recyclers would buy all of this stuff, but not all of the stuff they would get would be recyclable. So they would sort through it, and they were left with tons of it, millions of tons of it, that was non-recyclable. What did they do with it? They would dump it in the countryside. They would fill up valleys with it. It was actually trashing their country. The government caught wind of this, and they said, we've got to shut this down. As a matter of fact, Bork, who I mentioned earlier, tracked some of the plastic scrap from Berkeley, California. He put in a GPS transponder in one of the bales. He found it confirmed some of their worst nightmares. Dumping in the local canyon after being sorted, they couldn't recycle it. Plastic in the farmland got incorporated into the soil of the cornfields nearby. That's not very good. So in January 2018, a little over a year ago, China banned almost all imports. It's now 1% of what it was. That means it's now being stockpiled. We don't know what to do with it. Keith Harrison runs a nonprofit called the Recycling Partnership that works to improve recycling rates. She says more plastic in the US is now ending up in landfills and getting incinerated, which is more pollution. She said the confusion is often discouraging. We can't say, okay, stop recycling right now, but next week we're going to be recycling again. They didn't want to do that, so it's now being stockpiled. We need help for things. They need to have more good, valuable plastic, the stuff that is sorted easily and recycled easily. So we're still trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, where did all this go? So we couldn't ship it to China any longer. And by the way, part of that process was the shipping containers for all the products that we had would come from China to the west coast of the United States to then be distributed. The ships would then turn around and go back to China. Well, what they did is they thought, well, why send the empty boat back? Let's fill it up with the recycling and send it back. It's going to go back anyway. So that's how that efficiency started happening with this process. So the ships were doing double duty. Now, the plastic waste to other Southeast Asian countries has skyrocketed. Exports from the US to Thailand has jumped 7,000%. in 1 year, and in 1 year. In Malaysia, it's gone up several 100%. The plastic gets separated by the paper factories in these countries. It gets dumped to the neighborhood community, and the only way to get rid of it is to openly burn it. Air, water, and land are all affected by this. So we're realizing now that these smaller countries are being overwhelmed. They don't know what to do with it. So we need other solutions. One of the solutions, we have to reduce our plastic consumption. So what do we do as individuals? You can just put into Google or any other search engine how to reduce plastic use. Some of the recommendations by ewg.org is using glass or BPA-free baby bottles. I suggest a glass. Avoid baby toys made of plastic. You seek out wool, cotton, and uncoated wood. Use ceramic or glass food containers. Absolutely. I've talked about this on other shows. We've got to get the plastic out of your life. It's estrogen mimickers, it's phthalates, it's toxifying your body, it's causing all kinds of problems. Use wooden cutting boards instead of plastic. Don't use a microwave, and if you use a microwave, never anything plastic, no plastic wrap, no plastic anything ever in the microwave. Pick a cotton shower curtain instead of a vinyl one. That would be a great idea. I did that myself. The greeneducationfoundation.org has said stop using plastic straws. Plastic straws has really made it into the news recently. A lot of places are being banned. A lot of restaurants are converting over into paper. Just simply don't use one unless you absolutely need it. Use a reusable produce bag. I've done that for decades now. It's really easy to do once you get into the process of putting it in your car. When you drive to the grocery store, take it out of the car. Again, these are things you have to remember because sometimes you go into the store, oh gosh, I forgot them, and now they're in the car. So when you fill them up at the store, you take them home, you bring them in the house, you empty them out, then you have to remember to put them back in the car, so you just need that little system set up. I got this because everybody talks about this to me. Give up gum. Gum is made out of a synthetic rubber, which is plastic. Buy boxes instead of plastic packaging when you can, for instance, laundry detergent. Purchase food like cereal, pasta, and rice from bulk bins whenever you can. Try to reuse the bags that you're filling up with. Use a reusable bottle or mug for your beverages. If you have a workplace, bring a glass or a ceramic mug from home. Use that as your workplace one. Try to do the same at home. Bring your own container for takeout in your restaurant doggy bag. Sounds a little weird, but it would be a good idea if we all did that. Don't use plastic utensils whenever possible, and on it goes. One of the easy things to do is stop buying water in plastic jugs, unless of course you're traveling, it gets difficult. What I've noticed too is a lot of airports now have filtered water stations, so if you bring your own stainless steel container, even if you bring it empty, you can't bring the liquids through security, but through security, depending on the airport, you could actually fill up that container when you're traveling, and I've done that a few times, and that's obviously very helpful. So there are things that we can do to decrease plastic. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.